The dev server has come out of nowhere and slapped us all in the face, so I decided that today I was just gonna take a look at the new Italian tree and maybe some other vehicles and just give my first impressions on them. Now, keep in mind all of these statistics are due to change and probably will change with some of these. First things first, we have your reserve. This is a little armored car, looks to be fairly mobile. It's a bad power to weight ratio, but the top speed's okay. And at tier 1, you've got a 500 shots per minute, 20 mil, with 12 degrees of gun depression, good turret traverse, and if the stats stay the same as they are, which they probably won't, this is a Panzergranat round, 64 mil of pen. Otherwise, you're going to be rocking 29 millimeters of pen. But since this is in a modification in the tree, it might stay as it is. You might be getting 64 mil of pen, which will be crazy. These camouflages, some of them are quite nice. This one's not too bad. This one's horrendous. This one's also quite horrendous. That one's quite nice. That one's quite nice. That one's okay, I guess. It's a winter camo. Then we have our first medium tank. It's a little derpy M3 Lee looking thing with a pair of 8mm machine guns in the hull, which don't seem to be modeled. And a little derpy 47, which has real bad pen. Real bad. Now here's what I mean about the stats being subject to change. Why do we have these two rounds? What advantage does this one have over this one? The explosive mass is exactly the same. This one's a heavier shell with more penetration. What's the advantage of this shell? I really don't see. Oh well, moving on. We have the AS-42. This thing looks like a lot of fun to play. It looks like a lot of fun to play. This thing reminds me of the Kubelwagen. It looks like a lot. It's going to be a meme vehicle is basically what I'm trying to say. 64 mil of pen if it keeps its current stats. Very good turret traverse. 10 degrees of gun depression. And we should be able to test drive this one so we can actually see how good the mobility on this thing is. You can't actually play the Italians out in the dev server at the moment, so I can't get you any upgraded vehicles, and I can't show you any proper gameplay of this, but I can show you this. Oh, wow. Really? Okay. Yeah, this thing's fairly mobile. Stabilizer? 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 Okay, that might be a little bit broken. Little tiny clips, but with 64 mil of pen, little tiny clips is all you need. Stabilizer on this thing at 1.3. If this stays as it is, this thing is gonna be broken as hell. This could be a Seal Clubber extraordinaire at 1.3. I am liking the look of this little monster. Right, looking good so far. We'll also test out the mobility of the other tier 1s while we're here. So let's test out the little medium tank. This gun I'm expecting to be fairly slow velocity, very disappointing, a lot like the low tier French vehicles, but the guns can still do work because a lot of the things you're going to fight don't have much armor. Sorry about any lag or like annoying camera work. I haven't changed my dev server settings. Yeah, mediocre mobility. Turret traverse is actually fairly decent for this tier. It's really not that bad. And the gun is higher velocity than I expected, actually. And let's see what the shrapnel is like. Hey, that's not bad. That is not bad at all. There is no chance in hell that I'm going to go through Matilda. Yeah, that's not too bad. That little high explosive pop there. I don't know where that went. Not even going to try. But yeah, 1.7. That thing shouldn't be too bad. AFB1, this should have very good mobility. But, man, I can't see the reason to use this thing if that little anti-air gets a stabilizer. Yeah, sure, it's open top, but... Well, here we go. Yeah, this is fairly mobile. This is fairly mobile. I'll give it that. I was worried by the power to weight ratio, but it is going at quite a speed. Yeah, no concerns about the mobility of this thing. None at all. And with a 20 mil at 1.0, this thing is going to be a monster. This is going to be the new Panzer II. Yeah, this is one of the vehicles to look out for when you're fighting the Italians. This thing's good. This thing is, I can tell right now, is going to be good. Thumbs up from me. Even if it gets nerfed down to like 40 mil of pen, that's still a good vehicle. That's looking very good. Okay, here's where I'm expecting it to go down a bit. L3, the one that everyone memes about. Yeah, I've been checking armor on these because basically none is the kind of rule we're going on. I should go back and check them though. 30 shots per minute. 2-second reload rate, 15 degrees of gun depression. That is very nice. You're going to be able to get this thing right up on a hill with good turret traverse and what looks like a good horizontal. This thing could be quite nice. I mean, it's only got 29 mil of pen with a 20 mil, granted, but you can get this in the right position and use that 15 degrees of gun depression. Look how low this thing is to the ground. Boom. 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 Yeah, I mean, that's not that bad, actually. Look at that gun depression. If you are... Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That's so much gun depression. That is so much. Look at that thing. And how far left and right can this gun go? Okay, not as far as I thought. Well, that's a little bit disappointing. But yeah, gun depression like that, you can't fault this thing. What is it, 1.0? Nothing wrong with that if it's 1.0. Yeah, 1.0. Nothing wrong with that at all. That's going to be, I mean, not great, but not bad by any stretch of the imagination. L640. This is looking to be unarmored. Very, very, very much unarmored. Turret traverse is good. 20 mil has 64 mil of pen. 1.3 BR. Looking promising. It's looking good for the Italian tree so far. We got some really good vehicles if these go in, you know, how they are right now. No stabilizer, as would be expected of this tier. That was quite disappointing there. Very long reload on this 20, actually. Didn't get that with the other ones. And it seems to not be doing... Very bouncy. Look at that recoil as well. I feel there's something different between this 20... We're not going to look at that. I feel there's something different between this 20 and the other 20. This one feels a lot more underwhelming. Mobility's good. If this tank gets the same amount of, like, 20 mil performance as the other ones, this could be good. This current 20 mil is really not looking that great. That gun depression is scary. Can you imagine this thing poking up over a hill? It's tiny. This turret is tiny if you just use all that gun depression. These are going to be Ridgeline Warriors at low tier. Right. Yeah, that's not too great as it is right now. That's the first tank that I'm not too happy about. Let's look at the armor on this thing. Yeah. Nothing. Armor on this thing. Actually, that's not too bad on the mantlet there. 70 mil, 45 there. This turret, if you use your 15 degrees of gun depression, oh boy, these Italian tanks have good gun depression. You use that gun depression, this thing could be quite well armored, actually. And this thing is open top. Yeah, 3mm all around. You're going to get penned by 7.92s, even if they shoot you here. Didn't really expect anything else. We can't test drive anymore, because we can't research anything. But here we go. So, this is very much like the M3 Lee in that it's got a small gun in the turret. It's got two 8mm machine guns, which have only got 3mm of pen. So that's just garbage. But in the hull here, in this semi-traversable turret, making it kind of a tank destroyer, is this 37mm gun. And this looks to be fairly potent. With 10 degrees of gun depression, armor's terrible, as expected. 10 degrees of gun depression... Oh. Sorry, 8 degrees. Yeah. 27mm of pen. This thing's a joke. With 27mm of pen and a 4.1 second reload, not even a traversable turret, this thing's the definition of Italian tanks. Yeah, no. Thumbs down. Thumbs down from me. That's not looking promising. Here's an L40. Don't know why that gun's up like that by default. Interesting. 6.5 second reload, very slow. Turret traverses fast, but I'm sure very limited. Horsepower per ton seems fairly okay, and so does the top speed. Some of the mobility on this thing's not going to be too bad. And here's the worrying part. 39mm of pen. It's not 27, and it is a 47 at 1.7, so you could... So many 7s in that sentence. You could make this thing work, I'm sure. But probably not your best tank. 12 degrees of gun depression, that's not too bad. Right, AB43. This is the AB41, I assume, but with a 47. Yep, it's looking that way. No armor at all, penned by 50 cals everywhere easily, probably even penned by some smaller machine guns than 50 cals. 49mm of pen, that's not too bad actually. At 2.0 that could work. It's not great, but it's not too bad, and it's got good mobility for sure. Definitely got good mobility on this thing. 7 degrees of gun depression isn't too bad. The reload rate is fairly good for 2.0. This thing could be alright. I wouldn't hold your breath, but it could be alright. The P40, exactly the same as far as I'm aware to the P40 Leoncello. Fairly adequate tank. Good heat shell, 100mm pen, mediocre AP shell, good high explosive mass, terrible penetration. Useful if you get the side of a Sherman or something. Other than that, use the heat. Next, we have a little anti-air. This thing is adorable. Look at this thing. Now, this is actually like a modern vehicle, so you can see aluminium alloy. This thing is gonna be a little monster. Hey, no armor, as expected, because aluminium alloy is actually terrible. I was just checking the thing worked there. But here on top is what interests me. 60 degrees of gun elevation, plenty to shoot a plane. Nearly 1,000 shots per minute. That is insane. This thing is gonna fire like... It's gonna sound like a Gatling gun. That is crazy. Reload rate of 9.1 seconds between clips, if you get clips. 40mm of AP pen. I mean, that's not great, but it's not too bad. I don't know why the default round only has 2mm of pen. It should have 40 because it does have the APIT round. Oh well. Yeah. Looks fairly good. Mobility's definitely good. 3.4 ton mass and 115 km/h top speed. This thing's going to be running around the battlefield rapidly, but no armor. It's very small, actually. It doesn't really show here, but it is tiny. 4 crew members, that's not bad at all. And a very rapid firing 20 mil with 10 degrees of gun depression and 40 mil of pen. Gonna be pretty good as an anti-air, I imagine. Maybe not the best as a tank destroyer, but pretty good as an anti-air. Now we have the stubby-barreled tank destroyer. This thing, no armor, as is... wait. I read 30, and I thought there would be no armor. That's wrong. That is 75 at 2.3. That is fantastic for 2.3. That is some awesome armor. And this gun... Ooh, that hurts me inside. 36 of pen. Heat? Oh, 100. Oh, well, there's nothing to worry about then. Holy shit. This thing's gonna work wonders. 100 mil of heat pen at 2.3 with a 75mm gun, 12 degrees of gun depression. Mobility obviously isn't going to be that good looking at the horsepower to ton ratio. But that is a good gun, and with 75mm of frontal armor, I can't fault this thing. I'm going to have to give this one a try. Interesting. Very interesting. Look at this. Look at that. That's an immediate ricochet. That is insane. Right, moving on. We have the next tank destroyer. This one has a slightly longer barrel, 75, now at 3.0. Similar horsepower to ton ratio, still not very good. Armor is exactly the same, now at 3.0. Starting to get a little bit with the armor, but still good. And as you can see, it's got the exact same gun performance. I feel like this isn't finished. I'm sure this is going to change. Because I can't imagine a longer barrel gun having the exact same penetration with its AP. With the heat, yeah, I can imagine that. AP, maybe not. So this is 99% subject to change. So we're going to basically ignore the gun on that. But it should be okay at 3.0. At 3.3, we have the even longer barreled 75 version. Only 50mm of turret armor with a better engine. So this one's going to be a lot more mobile than the other ones. In fact, this is going to be fairly good in terms of mobility. And 12 degrees of gun depression still. 75mm of pen. 100mm heat shell. So this is the same gun as you get on the P40 Leoncello on a little mobile tank destroyer. This thing should do some work. Granted that it's low profile, if you can get it into a sneaky position, but probably not as good as the P40. Moving on to rank 3, we have the Breda 501. This is one of the vehicles I'm most excited about. And at 4.0, 4 degrees of gun depression is terrible, but 9.7 reload on a 90mm gun at 4.0 you can't whine with. Engine power is greater than 10 horsepower per ton. Max speed seems fairly good. The gun, 94mm of pen with an APHE shell. That's fairly good for 4.0. 113 with the upgraded APHE shell, which is really good for a 4.0 90mm. Once you go through, this thing's pretty much going to kill anything it pens, which is nice. And it's mobile, which is very nice. The armor is nothing. At its open top, so expect to be killed by planes. 5 crew members could keep you alive for a while, but probably not. Other than that, nothing too special about that one. Probably going to be quite fun to play though. The M4 Type 1C. This is a very interesting tank. It seems to have the back end of an M4A4, the turret of a Sherman Firefly, and the front end of an M4A1 welded to the front end of a Sherman M4A4. I don't really know what's going on here. I'm going to be entirely honest. 17-pounder gun is very, very nice indeed. Monstrously powerful gun for 4.7. Probably going to perform very similarly to the Sherman Firefly. Does have a little bit less armor. Looks like the mobility is slightly better though. Same gun depression. Same gun. Got the 50 cal on top. Can't fault it. If you like the Sherman Firefly, if you like the French M4 with the Israeli gun, Super Sherman, you'll like this. Very, very similar to those two vehicles in playstyle. Those are two vehicles that I love dearly. I think they're very, very powerful. I think this is going to be a powerful tank as well. Moving on to the tank destroyers, we go we're staying at 2.3. Upgraded engine with still 75mm of hull armor. Not too bad for 3.3, not great, but not too bad. You'll bounce if anyone hits your mantlet here. This slope is no longer 75, so people will be able to pen this quite easily through the front, I'd imagine. The mobility will be good on this, though, and it is very low profile with a 105mm cannon with 64mm of pen. Now, that's not good, but that's not bad either, so I'd load some of these just in case you get the side of some tanks, but probably best idea is to load mostly heat. 120mm of pen at 3.3 is terrifying, and a 105 should do a fair amount of damage. This thing's going to play very similarly to the Stu 42G in the German tree. Interesting. Very interesting. Now we have the premium. This, as far as I'm aware, is exactly the same as that one in the main tree. Looks to be. Yep. Fair enough. Moving up to 4.3, we have another version of this. Now with a 75mm gun. Fairly short barrel. I imagine this thing's going to have similar performance to the first T-34's 76. 25mm of armor on top of 75. 100mm. 100mm of frontal armor. Let down by this plate, granted, but if you can hide that with your 10 degrees of gun depression, angle this thing up, you're going to be bouncing a lot of things. Let's say you're fighting a Panzer IV-J at 1,000 meters. It's, okay. Okay. Feel there's, little bit of a dodginess going on about here. Don't know what's going on there. Oh, that's because it goes straight into this plate. Interesting. But yeah, 25mm on top of the existing 75. That's fairly good frontal armor. You'll bounce some things, and it's spaced. So if anyone's firing heat at you, you'll be okay. I don't know. Hopefully that's good enough armor. Anyway, the mobility should be okay. It's got the upgraded engine, nearly 10 power to weight ratio. 75mm of APHE pen. That's not bad. But for 4.3, it's not good. And 100mm of heat pen. Oh, that gun's tragic. That's really tragic for a 4.3. The armor's great. The armor's great, don't get me wrong. The mobility seems to be good. But for a 4.3, you're giving it a 3.0 gun. So this thing, I think, needs to go down or have the gun buffed. Yeah, I wouldn't advise that right now. Now we have a longer barreled 75, now 46 rather than 34, I think the other one was. Yeah, that's looking more like it. It's the 75s that I expect from my Axis TDs. Still, same armor, upgraded, 25 plus 75. Very, very nice, especially spaced. Mobility should be alright. 4.7 BR, 10 degrees of gun depression, very nice. 7.6 second reload, adequate. 147mm of pen. It feels like Jagdpanzer 470. Which isn't a bad thing. This thing's probably going to be alright. But, I don't know. Just can't get behind the 4.7 BR. Guess we'll see on the live server how this thing does. It's a toss-up. I'd say 4.3, but it could work at 4.7 as well. I'll just have to see. Next, we have the 9053 M41M. Now, prepare to be disappointed if you wanted this thing to be good, because I checked the stats of this earlier, because it looks great. This thing looks like a bigger Su-51, and I love the look of it. It looks hilarious, with only 3 crew members. No armor, basically. No armor to speak of. And tragic mobility is all I can probably describe this thing as. Feels like the Waffenträger of the Italian tank tree. And so that should mean that the gun makes up for all of its downsides, but if we go into modifications, the current performance is the exact same as the 4.0 tank destroyer on wheels. And if so, if that is how it's meant to be with a 9053, it is the same gun. You can't put this thing at 5.3. It only has up to 113 mil of pen. At 5.3, that's not going to do anything. And this thing's going to get shot from the air. This thing's going to get shot from anything behind, because there is no, armor here. There's only 3 crew members. This is not a 5.3 tank. I don't know what Gaijin are thinking. Either they plan to buff this a tremendous amount to make it worth 5.3 BR. I would expect at least 180 mil of pen for it to be a 5.3 with this kind of armor, this kind of mobility. If not above 200 mil of pen. I mean, the Waffenträger is only good because it gets the long 88, which has 230 plus mil of pen at 0 meters. This thing is not worth 5.3. With only 8 rounds, I can only imagine this was some sick joke by Gaijin. So, either put this thing down, 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 or give it some serious buffs. Or just don't play it, I guess. M26 is exactly the same as the American M26. It's up to you whether you like that or not. I'm not going to review it because it's exactly the same. Here is where it gets really interesting. With absolutely no armor at 6.7, this is basically an M56 Scorpion. Not M56 Scorpion, M50 Ontos. But with only the one recoilless rifle. 10 degrees of gun depression is good. You'll be able to poke this thing over a hill, aim it down, and basically just not be able to be shot because you can only poke out that gun. Thing's tiny. Great mobility. And this is a very nice gun. 381 mil of heat pen. That is fantastic. Hull breaking loads of things. Hesh shell with 152 mil of pen. That's going to be really potent against anything that, has less than 152 of armor. But yeah, this thing's looking good for a 5.7. Especially with that 12.7 strapped to it, which could be useful. Oh, 3mm of pen. Never mind. I expected at least like 20, but like anti-airs and stuff. But it could be still useful for killing a gunner on an anti-air if you're in trouble. And it looks like it's got some smoke grenade launchers. This thing could be good. This thing could definitely be good. I'm looking forward to playing that one. M26A1, exactly the same as the did the Americans get an M26A1? Because this has the upgraded M3A1 cannon. I do like this UI. No, they don't. So yeah, the gun on the M46 on an M26. That's what this thing is. I will therefore review it. It's a very nice gun. It doesn't get a heat shell. but it does get the 170mm pen APHE, which is very, very nice. 192 on an AP shell, not too bad. And your APCR has up to 271. So I'd load some of these, load some of these, load some of these, just bring all round everything, really. Other than that, the M26 is a fairly solid tank. It's not great, it's not bad, but it's an M26. If you like the American M26, you're going to like this thing because it's got a better gun. Kind of wish it had the heat shell, but it would be a bit broken at 6.7. Next, we have the R3T106FA, very similar to the previous vehicle at 6.7, also at 6.7, this time with 2 recoilless rifles rather than just the one, exact same reload rate, only 7 degrees of gun depression, much, much faster turret traverse. This thing's going to be more of a circle strafer than the other one, which is more of a sniper in my opinion. Much better mobility, and the armor is actually thicker. But as we know, aluminium alloy is useless, so it doesn't actually have much better armor. And exactly the same shell loadout. I'd say this thing's much better at 6.7 than the Fiat. I'd say this thing's more of a 6.3 if this is a 6.7. But I can see where this thing could be useful, especially with that 10 degrees of gun depression, and especially with the ability to have the gun just so high up off the actual chassis, which is on this one as well, but obviously this thing's smaller, and therefore it's actually not quite as high over. Both of them, I think, will be good. The Fiat, nowhere near as good as the R3. Next, we have the last tank destroyer in the line, and that is the M36B1. This is an M36 turret mounted on top of a Sherman hull. It has a very, very nice turret traverse, insanely fast, 25 degrees a second. 10 degrees of gun depression, very nice. 90mm M3A1 gun, same as on the M36, very potent, powerful gun. 9.7 seconds reload on a 90mm is very nice. Mobility is incredibly good. That is a ridiculous power to weight ratio. Nearly, well, just over 2 times the, 20 horsepower per ton. And same shell loadout as the M26A1. Very, very nice looking tank destroyer there. That's definitely going to be one of the pinnacles of this tank tree, is the 6.7 lineup. With the Fiat, the R3, the M26A1, and this M36 tank destroyer just to top it all off. And in the air at 6.7, you can even bring the, your G56, which is terrifying. Moving on, we've got the AUBL-74. This is the Cockerill. I don't know how to pronounce it. Don't worry. This thing, no armor, obviously, as it is an armored car. Armored in inverted commas. Mobility is incredibly good. 248 horsepower for only an 8.2 ton vehicle with a 90mm gun. That is incredible. 9 degrees of gun depression, very fast turret traverse, incredible. Top speed is amazing. Good 300mm pen heat shell, 102mm pen hash, not great, but that 300mm pen heat is gonna do you really well. It gets 6 smoke grenades, which probably all launch at the same time, so it's only a single-use smoke, but you should be able to get out of there. Good reload, good gun depression, good turret traverse, good mobility, good penetration, good top speed. I don't see a problem with this vehicle. If it's not stabilized, that could be a problem, but I imagine this thing's going to be quite good at 7.0. Moving on, we have the M47-105-55. This is very similar to the German M48, is it, with the 105? But obviously, it's Italian. I've never actually driven the M47, so I don't really know what this thing's all about. But very nice looking heat shell and APDS shell. S shell's not too bad, but I wouldn't advise bringing that thing if you got these two. There's no real point. The armor seems to be mediocre, nothing too great. This is a big weak spot. Obviously the hull's fairly weak. The lower plate is what can only really be described as meh. And this part of the lower plate is fairly tragic. This is utterly pathetic. But, you know, it's got Oh, only 5 degrees of gun depression. I expect it to have more. Good turret traverse. It's got a good reload. It's got a 105mm cannon. Good APDS. Good heat. Only 5 degrees of gun depression, though. Don't see how that's right. I don't see how that's right with a turret this tall. Feel like it should have 10. But, as it is, doesn't look that great for a 7.7. CDAM 25. Now this is, this is interesting. 550 shots per minute, 10 degrees of gun depression, so you will actually be able to sometimes shoot tanks. Ridiculous turret rotation speed. I mean, you're going to give whiplash to anyone in this turret. Mobility is fantastic, as it's built on an M113 chassis. Armor is obviously absolutely nothing, as it's built on an M113 chassis. HE shell is going to be very good. And APDS with 110 millimeters of penetration at 8.0. 110. Holy crap. Wow. Okay. The anti-airs in this tree are spicy. I'll give them that. I'll give them that. Wow. Okay, that's a lot of pen. This thing is going to be a little monster to fight. Whoa. That is great. And I've got a surprise coming up for you. Centauro, the B1 Centauro. Wheeled tank destroyer. Very beautiful tank. This thing is gorgeous. 6 degrees of gun depression, fairly disappointing. Turret traverse is amazing. Reload rate's very good for a 105. Armor is non-existent, obviously, but this upper plate is very well angled. You could bounce some people who shoot wrong. This lower plate is tragic. Turret's tragic. No armor on the turret, no armor on the lower plate. This is the only place you may occasionally pull off a cheeky bounce, but unlikely at 7.7. And the penetration is 303 APDS, 400 heat. Very, very nice for a 7.7 tank. This gun is probably still good at 8.0. And 7.7, it's definitely still good. On a chassis like this, you can definitely put that to work with 740 horsepower and only 25 tons mass. This thing's going to be a little monster on the battlefield. It's not even that small. The OF40 is the rip-off Leopard 2K of the Italian tree, with 1,286 horsepower for only 43 tons of tank. With good turret traverse, well, kind of good. 9 degrees of gun depression, 8.7 seconds reload, and the same shell types as on the Centauro. As I say, still good at 8.0. 303 will do you. 400 will definitely do you, unless you're fighting things with composite, so, definitely bring some of this. Armor is, though, predictably fairly non-existent. This upper plate might bounce some things, but for the most part, the lower plate's awful, the turret's fairly awful, and as far as I'm aware, no composite, just spaced. Oh, and it's composite on the back, but it looked like spaced. There you go. I don't know why they don't want you to pen these cheeks when this is just easily pennable. Just shoot it here, and it'll probably just go through. I don't see any reason why not. Actually, that's fairly bouncy. That's trolly. That is trolly. Yeah, that's actually really trolly. I mean, most places you are still going to pen. Especially up here. Especially on this ridge. There. You're going to pen most places, but there are a lot of bouncy spots on here. The upper hull is not bad at all. Turret ring is predictably not great. Lower plate is awful, obviously. It's not well armored, but it's not badly armored, like I thought it was. So I'm impressed. Seems fairly good. And this 105 has the same loader. I've gone over that, haven't I? Going mad. Now we go on to the last tier, rank 6. We have at 8.7, we have the Centauro Romor. This has extra armor in the form of ERA. No actual extra armor in terms of actual thickness of armor. The turret traverse seems a little bit slower. Gun depression's the same, reload's the same, horsepower's the same as far as I'm aware. However, you do get a 385mm pen APFSDS round, which is nice to say the least. Very, very nice indeed. I like that. I do like that. That's going to be scary. Then we have the OF40 Mark IIA. Another rip-off Leopard 2A4. Similar. Same engine power. Same weight. Same gun depression. Better turret traverse. Much better turret traverse. Now it's got a 50 cal on top. That's nice. And I'd imagine with the 8.7 BR also comes the same APDS shell as you get on the other one. It's got a rangefinder. I don't know if it has a stabilizer. I can't test drive this thing. I do not have the ability to take Italian tanks into tank battles. Might do now, actually, but I didn't earlier. And last, but not least by any stretch of the imagination, we have the top-tier Italian vehicle at 9.0, the Automatic. With a fairly adequate turret rotation speed, 5 degrees of gun depression, and a rapid reload. This auto-firing 76mm cannon, mounted on a chassis with nearly 1,200 horsepower and only 46 tons, giving it good mobility, armor which won't block anything, and definitely radar guidance. This 76mm anti-air is rocking an APFS DS shell with, brace yourself, 311 millimeters of penetration. We're not even going to look at the HE shell. This thing is a tank destroyer. Let's just go to the M1 Abrams quickly. Let's just have a look at the armor protection on this thing. Protection analysis, Italy. The Automatic with its APFSDS at 1,000 meters, straight through the top. No question. Kill the gun, kill the cannon breach, and them here, kill the commander. All the way over the turret ring. Anywhere on the side, blast straight through this thing. How about the Leopard 2A4, for example? Protection analysis. The Italy. Automatic. At 1,000 meters. My game's crashed. And that right there, boys, will do me today. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like, favorite, comment, and or subscribe. Can you even favorite anymore? I don't even know. I will see you all in the future when this patch is live. Have a wonderful day.